Hello everyone, Dibz here, and what? Hero bans? That's right, hero bans decided by the Overwatch dev team are here. Today we're going to be taking a look at who's in and out of this week, and what heroes and comps I think are going to be strong as a result of these bans. Based off of the patch notes, these new hero bans are going to be happening every week, and in my opinion, I love this idea because metas have been lasting for months and even seasons. It looks like the Overwatch dev team has finally decided to step in and force us to mix things up. My hat's off to them. So for this first week for competitive, it's Orisa, Mei, Hanzo, and Baptiste that are banned. Today we're going to be taking a look at the competitive since those will be directly affecting the ladder in which we actually play in. First off, let me just say that I bet the vast majority of the Overwatch player base, meaning you guys, rejoiced because Mei is one of the bans for the week, and I'll admit, me too. There have been a lot of complaints of how annoying she is to play against and how strong she really is. With her out of the way this week, this opens up a lot of diversity in what can actually be considered playable without feeling like you're at a huge disadvantage. Along with Mei being banned, two notorious heroes that were also a big backbone of the shield meta, Orisa and Baptiste, are out for the week as well. This means that we're going to be seeing a ton more of Rein Zarya and even possibly a bit of dive? Maybe. With Baptiste and Sigma Orisa comps gone, there will be no immortality field to save those being Dovan, no Orisa halt to mitigate dive movement, and no walls or freezes to punish those focusing a target. Remember that all shields were recently nerfed, so even Rein Sigma is not as beefy as it used to be. Now, I'm not saying that dive is going to be super meta, but the bans to these specific heroes definitely boost the effectiveness of how much dive can accomplish now, even with Brigitte in the pool, as she has changed quite a bit from being super tanky to becoming a little more focused on healing. Though Doomfist is really good versus double shield, we may end up also seeing him played a bit more this week because of the effectiveness against dive. Sorry Zen players. So with this in mind, the comps that will be effective positively by these bans will most likely comprise of something like these. Rein Zarya and hitscan comps are going to be really strong this week because shields aren't going to be nearly as prominent as they used to be, with Hog being seen a little less because of how reliable his hook was with Orisa's halt, and how he doesn't really support any of the other tanks the same way. Of course, this doesn't mean that there won't be any Hog play, as there are some really sick Hog players out there, but it'll definitely be harder to get those juicier hooks on command. There definitely will be less shield action though, so don't really take Hog out of the equation when thinking about which tank to choose. But with this Rein Zarya tank lineup, if up against dive, Doomfist is going to be vital in tearing up the backline if the enemy team runs anything with Zen. We know Moira isn't going to be on the dive team since she doesn't do well in keeping up. Sombra on the standard team will be super effective depending on what kind of tank lineup that the dive team is running, with McCree being an overall great pick against the dive comp if he stays close to the team. Junkrat will also be a decent pick as there will not be an immortality field to absorb the tire damage, so don't forget that. Overall, I'd expect the Rein Zarya comp to consist of mainly McCree Sombra and or Junkrat, along with a mix of Pharah, Widow, or Reaper play, as there are less shields on the field now. However, the effectiveness of Pharah, Widow, and Reaper are entirely dependent on how hard the enemy team is countering those heroes, or not, hence they wouldn't be considered safe picks in my opinion. Again, those heroes are viable, but definitely not what I would consider stronger as a result of the heroes that are banned for this week. But in regards to the support with the Rein Zarya comp, Mercy definitely won't be as effective since Baptiste won't be able to keep a lamp for her to get those risky reses. So we'll probably see less of her unless your team is running a pharmacy. Moira, Ana, and Lucio/Zen on the other hand can be pretty viable support picks no matter what the enemy team is running unless they're running dive, in which case you'd want to stay off of Zen, especially against a Doomfist. I'd expect Ana to be pretty prominent and Lucio/Moira to be played depending on what your team comp is running. For this type of standard comp, supports won't be effective as much besides Mercy, but I feel there's a bit more of freedom in regards to what you can pick. Now, to expand on the reasoning behind the Sombra pick with this standard comp, we'll first have to dive into what the dive meta can be open to now, and how it is stronger as a result of the bans. First off, with dive, things have changed quite a bit since it was last viable. For example, D.Va has been changed to almost be essential versus snipers, as the buffs to her boosters allow her to be even more mobile than she previously was. This means that D.Va and Ball, along with Winston and D.Va, are most likely going to be the strong dive tank lineups, which is why Sombra will be a good pick when going against dive, especially since she is already good against Genji and Doomfist comps. As for the dive DPS, Genji, Tracer, and Doomfist can all be viable picks dependent on if the enemy team has a Sombra. With Sombra on the non-dive team, you most likely won't be seeing as much Doomfist or Genji on the dive team. So instead, Sombra Tracer as dive could be a viable comp with the Sombra lurking until a target is dove on. Also, with D.Va's increase in mobility, Pharmacy will be a bit more viable with dive, as D.Va can stick more onto Widow, creating more space for the flying duo. So in regards to the DPS, they will have to determine whether or not they are being or will be shut down by the enemy Sombra or Widow if running Pharmacy. Without a Sombra on the enemy team, the dive team will have the ability to go at it like Season 2 without a Mei or Baptiste on the playing field. But this means that there is so much emphasis on the Sombra, you can bet that she is going to have a pretty big role this week. Moving on to the support heroes backing up the dive team, Ana, Zen, Lucio, and Mercy all have their benefits into this type of comp, but it depends on entirely what your team and the enemy team is running. If the enemy team is running Doom or Sombra, then of course Zen and Lucio are going to be having a harder time. But they are also very strong picks against Tracer and Genji dive comps because of their strong ultimates. So you're gonna have to do a little bit of trade-off, and this is also situational based. Overall, the safe dive tanks would be D.Va mixed with either Winston or Ball. The safe dive DPS would be Tracer, Sombra, and then with Genji, Doomfist, Widow, or Pharah being picks depending on what the enemy team is running. The safe dive supports would be Ana, Lucio, and Mercy throughout, while Zen can be picked in discretion of what is seen on the field. So that about wraps up all of my thoughts in regards to which comps will be the most prominent in regards to the hero bans and which benefited the most. I'll post in the description a summary of what I expect to see, but I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on what you guys think will be stronger or weaker this week as well. I'm super excited to see Dive back, even just for a little while. But again, I'm super hyped that changes like these are going to be happening more frequently. Anyway, thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.